Ladies and gentlemen, our final panel discussion will cover our risk managers prepared for the future of digital disruption. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, we invite to the stage the moderator for this panel discussion, Stacey Huang, Executive Director, PARIMA.
Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay, I can hear myself, so that's good. I know we're in the middle of a captive conference, but are we ready to hear something other than captive? Wow, Farah, thank you very much. So, three other distinguished guests and myself will attempt to talk about digital disruption and whether risk managers or the risk community is prepared for it. Before I invite them on stage, I'm going to share a little bit of my perspective, and this sharing will take about 15 to 20 minutes, so I apologize if it gets boring. My name is Stacey, and I represent PARIMA. It's a not-for-profit association for corporate risk and insurance managers and insurance buyers. So we now have about 1,800 members across Asia Pacific, representing 1,000 companies in Asia. So people like risk managers from Petronas, Malaysia Rail, AirAsia, Lazada, Rolls-Royce are members of PARIMA. And what we really want to do is enhance the level of risk understanding and maturity in this community. So we want to be able for risk managers to be able to deepen their insights into risk practices, as well as have better and more advanced conversations with the market on their risk profile and risk financing and risk transfer methods. And we talked about yesterday, how do we get the risk community to be more aware and to train them up? Well, this is exactly what PARIMA does. We do a lot of networking, educational, and certification opportunities and content for our members to be able to deep dive into certain topics and to expand on their technical know-how. I think, for example, last month I was in Macau. We had an event, and we invited risk managers and their CFOs to come and talk about emerging risk, as well as some of the alternative risk transfer methods. At the end of this one-day workshop, a CFO came up to me and go, "Wow, I would really like to hear more about parametrics. Can you please tell me more?" So it's really good to see, a manifestation of interest in risk managers, and people are starting to see risk a little bit more differently in this new age. But let's talk about digital transformation. It is an agenda that is coming up as a rising concern for risk managers. In our conference last May in Thailand, and in our upcoming conference in Tokyo in October, digital transformation is going to be one of the top agenda items. We're going to be talking about blockchain, AI, but more specifically, how does this impact risk managers? I always carry two name cards with me, and not a lot of people know this, but I also have a side hobby or side job outside PARIMA. I run my own company, and it's called Change Voyage. And what we do is we help companies in their transformation journey, especially those that have a digital angle. I have more than 10 years of experience working on large-scale transformation projects or programs. So a lot of what I do is about getting businesses from point A to point B with the least amount of disruption and resistance. And so I do a lot of stakeholder management, transition planning, journey management, business simulations. I do a lot of communications and about how do we build and create that kind of mindset change, behavioral change in people. So it's very rare that these two roles of mine meet. And I usually try to keep them quite separate, but today is one of those rare days where I can talk about my two passions, risk management and managing digital transformation. So more about digital disruption. This guy is called John Chambers. He's the ex-CEO of Cisco Systems. In 2015, he made a prediction that in 10 years' time, 40% of businesses today will fail. 70% of business will attempt to do some form of digital transformation, but 30% of them will succeed. This actually echoes the sentiments of a lot of board members and a lot of senior executives. They know that the digital revolution is real. They will try and do something about it. But in this era, there's going to be more casualties than there are survivors. And the digital revolution is, as I said, quite real. Whether you're in Singapore with your smart nations, or whether you're in Thailand with 4.0, Japan with their 5.0, companies, countries, nations are embarking on this digital train. It's almost as if they're all scared to be left behind. When I surveyed about 1,559 businesses, sorry, not me, but MIT, About 3/4 of these companies reported that they are in the midst of going through business transformation. I'm seeing nods in the room because I think your company is also going through digital transformation. You just may not know what really does it mean. With spending of digital transformation is expected to hit $1.7 trillion in 2019, up 42% from last year. And a lot of this spending is coming from Asia Pacific. This means that we're going to see a wave of radical disruption to our business models and a lot of innovation coming to this region. So with this wave of disruption coming, how are risk managers fitting in? How does this affect and change the way risk management is done? I personally think that there are many ways that disruption will change the way risk management is being done, but there are about 5 ways. It will change the way risk monitoring and controls are done. It will change the way they do their risk judgment and analysis. It will change the type of risk that they manage. It will change the fundamental approach towards their risk management. And finally, it will be about a shift in focus in their risk activities. So with the rise of what we call sensors, IoT, wearables, we're starting to see a lot of technology embed risk management into their operations. A lot of technology projects I've been on already has some built-in compliance function, right? We have some blockage or warning if a budget is exceeded, or if input doesn't equal to estimated output, or if someone unauthorized is assessing something. So already risk management is really starting to be included into the system functionality in terms of being able to identify, predict, and even prevent wrong things from happening. And a very good example is Rolls-Royce. So I'm going to share a video of how they're using technology to build risk management into their operations.
We pair cloud technology and advanced analytics, supported by our global network, creating intelligent engines that deliver better on-time performance and better efficiency. Today, each engine produces terabytes of data on long-haul flights. And working with big data experts like Microsoft, we are now able to combine engine data with additional aircraft and operational data to unlock huge benefits for our customers. Connected by a single interface, our care teams combine their knowledge and experience with rich quantities of data to have complete situational awareness. This means that we are able to provide actionable insight to the right person at the right time, allowing customers to optimize their operation and ensure that every flight arrives on time. Airlines operate 24/7 around the globe. So do our services across the entire Rolls-Royce fleet wherever they are. A flexible, connected approach that ensures aircraft spend less time on the ground. Analyzing a wider set of data, giving us greater insight into the fleet's operation, enabling us to provide even greater levels of support to our customers. Above all, it allows us to focus our entire services network on keeping aircraft flying and delivering innovative care without impacting airline schedules.
So we see a lot of things from the video, and you can actually look more about Rolls-Royce. And Rolls-Royce, by the way, the risk manager in Singapore is our PARIMA board member, so I need to give him some credit as well. So what we're seeing a lot in the video is a lot of technology, right? We have sensors, we have analytics, we have wearables, we have being able to connect virtual teams together. I think this is just showing how we're starting to move from previously quite manual, reactive management of operational risk to now using more precise, preventive, and maybe to even some extent pervasive control mechanisms to do our risk controls. All right, so with the rise of, for example, algorithms, AI, machine learning, we're starting to have greater reliance on technology to make decisions. We made headline news of 2014, for example, in Hong Kong, a VC fund appointed an algorithm as their board director. Now, this algorithm is able to also, like any board members, have a voting right. It takes in a lot of amount of data, investment data, it makes an analysis, and it acts as an independent decision maker as part of the board. We're also seeing the same thing happening in banks and financial services with the rise of robo-advisors taking or replacing the back, middle, and front office. We're seeing it in other areas besides finance. We're seeing things like, take for example, this platform. You can upload your contract, it will scan, it will tell you a ranking, and it will tell you which clauses are unusual or are missing. So we're already doing algorithm-based legal advice. So all this just shows the fact that we are moving towards an age of augmented decision making. We are relying a lot more on technology to provide us that kind of insights. And really it's about now asking, are risk managers moving towards this? Do they have the capability and technology to help them in this? 76% of respondents towards my PARIMA survey said that they're still using Excel as their primary tool for risk assessment. But a growing number of them are starting to invest in analytics, in dashboards, heat maps, visualization tools, all to make sure that they can make risk quantifiable, measurable, and easier to report to their board. Now, the other new thing about digital is with digital risks, we've talked a lot about, I'm sure everyone knows this, but cyber. I think this year, PARIMA has done about 12 events in Asia on cyber alone. So we know it is a rising concern in this region, so I'm not going to talk more about it. But it's only a matter of time before an equivalent of GDPR gets enforced into our businesses in this region as well. So how are we handling privacy and data control? With new business models, how are we ensuring that our governance models, our governance today, corporate governance may or may not be sufficient to help us with new models, new pace, new products, new relationships. So how are risk managers keeping our board accountable? How are we having that conversation to say, look at all these new technology and coming in, what is actually the risk towards our intangible assets and towards where we are trying to get to as a company, overall goal, vision, and reputation. But speaking of reputation, it's not a new risk, but we all know with mobile phones, social media, changing societal expectations, we are going to start seeing reputation risk as becoming more accelerated and amplified. It's actually challenging companies and risk managers to radically rethink how are they handling reputation risk when it becomes all that more accelerated. Forgot, it's not there, it's there. All right, and with new risks, because there's no tried and true solutions and there is no one way of doing things, we don't know what we don't know in the future, risk management starts changing from being reactive to more proactive, and in some cases, creative. I think instead of focusing on prevention, not just prevention, so we know we'll be cyber attacked, it's just a matter of when, companies will start focusing on vigilance, meaning let's have pattern identification in place to be able to predict and identify events when it happens. And resilience, let's be able to rapidly contain the risk when it happens and lower the impact when it does happen. So I think activities like crisis simulation, business continuity planning, business BCM and all these kind of activities will start becoming more significant and needs to be rehearsed more regularly, especially at the board level. When I talk about creativity, and this is where we are all in, I do believe that alternative risk transfer methods and instruments will start becoming a little bit more attractive. Rising cost pressure, the fact that their traditional risks are not being insured or catered for, so we need to think about novel ways of looking as to how we can prevent and manage our risk. The fact that we're heading towards a network economy, boundaries are blurring between customers, suppliers, partners. It means that we need to do some sort of collective risk management or risk sharing method. So I do believe that will start rising in terms of people start asking about these products. And finally, we talk about innovation first and then regulation following behind. We know regulation doesn't follow the pace that innovation does. So what are risk managers doing to match that pace without impeding on innovation? Currently, they can use the regulatory and compliance stick and tell people, hey, you have to do this. But now the stick doesn't exist anymore. So how are they, how are they changing the conversation? How are they engaging people to be able to talk to people, ask the right questions, be courageous enough to actually ask that question, and have people actually listen to you and work on that problem. So all this boils down to what I feel is the most important change and shift in focus for risk management. It really doesn't matter what kind of risk strategy you have. At the end of the day, it all boils down to people and culture. If your people are not able to own the risk, manage it, report it, and if they don't feel like they are empowered to act on it, your risk strategy means nothing. Execution risk, to me, is still about the greatest risk of all. It's about equipping your people, your organization, that capability to act on certain things, and the culture and the mindset of your organization. Now, when we did, we poured through 100 JDs from risk managers, and almost all, 80% of them, I would say, would have some form of risk training and risk awareness in their job responsibility. But that is being downplayed in their job scope when they're now turning towards risk prevention and risk financing. But I think that will start rising in significance, especially when you look at digital disruption. We are heading towards a whole new era of change. So the company is expected to fail fast and fail often and bounce back quickly. With that, really, it boils down to your people. They will make or break your organization's resilience. And this is especially true when you look at the statistics for digital transformation. 84% of companies who engage in digital transformation fail. This is from Forrester. And already we've seen a lot of big brands and having this failure. GE's digital failure is a case study right now. Other big brands like Lego, Nike, Ford, Burberry, Procter & Gamble are examples of companies who, yes, very proudly, I'm going to announce my digital ambition. We're going to be the next digital luxury brand. And now they have to defund themselves and they have to remove themselves from the initiative because they have encountered performance challenges. And the reason why people are counting performance challenges? People and culture. A lot of people don't realize that when you're talking about digital transformation, the word to focus on is not digital, it's transformation. It's not about that shiny new app that you're making. It's not about that new startup company you're acquiring or the digital labs that you're starting up. It's really about whether or not do all your people understand what you're trying to get to. Is leadership, even from the top to the bottom to the middle, are they all aligned and are they all bought in? Will people fail with you and are they comfortable failing with you? So this is really about why I feel people and the people factor and the culture factor is very important, especially when we talk about cyber risk, reputation risk. Willis Towers Watson, they like to say this, right? It's the human factor of risk that really matters at the end of the day. And that is really quite true. So we've talked a lot about risk and how it's being affected and how it's being changed. Now, a study by Robert Half in 2016 asked chief risk officers, what are your current priorities and what are your shifting priorities for the next 1.5 years? Chief risk officer says, now, yes, I am talking to my CIOs. I'm talking to them about privacy, cyber concerns. But in the next 1.5 years, I need to start shifting myself, making myself able to get a seat at the table so I can start having that strategic discussions with people about new opportunities, new investments, the direction of the company. So I think risk managers are starting to see themselves as needing to shift towards more of that advisory and business partnering mode. The same with McKinsey's survey. They ask risk managers, what do you think of your responsibilities in the next 3 and 5 years? They say, we will start having more responsibility because there's just going to be more risk to manage. Just as a closing, I think today we did a big PARIMA competency model exercise. We've talked about what are the key skills and behaviors that differentiates between good and great risk managers. And risk managers today are still trying to justify their value in companies. So what really sets themselves apart is, being able to have good communication, good influencing skills, to get buy-in from stakeholders, being able to offer practical, relevant solutions to each stakeholder group, and then being able to execute on that solution. I think future People will start using more technology. They will start doing more strategic work. They will start having the authority to challenge people but not innovate, and they will focus a lot on people and awareness. We will start placing more importance of risk managers having agile commercial thinking, being able to mesh strategic insights, technological fluency, being able to influence people to be able to get the results that they want. They need to have some form of digital awareness and competency to be able to understand the trends that are coming, the pitfalls that might be coming, and because it's a lot about people, they're going to require a lot of dynamic stakeholder management. They need to be able to flex their management style to the different groups that they're managing and change and be able to predict and see what people want and be able to respond to that. And this is exactly where PARIMA is heading towards too. We are trying to organize trainings, workshops that's coming up in the next few months that focuses not just on technical skills, but also on what we call these other critical behavioral skills that are required. So if you know of any corporate risk managers that would benefit from being part of this community, being part of our development initiatives, please do invite them to join PARIMA. It is absolutely free of charge for corporate risk managers. And with that, I have finished my little spiel on where I think digital disruption and how does that affect the risk management field section is. So I would like to invite my distinguished panel to come up on stage and join me as we discuss more about their perspectives on how digital disruption affects risk managers. So can I invite the very dynamic Farah, the beautiful Suchitra, and the fresh rising star Kelvin? Yes, thank you.